Hey everybody, welcome into the Horseshoe Lounge at Roosters. It is a fun, casual joint, and we are going to talk about Georgia 42.
Not fun.
Ohio State 41. Not necessarily the most fun conversation that we could have. And no national championship berth for Ohio State. They were so close to stealing it away from Georgia. Maybe there's a case to be made that they deserved it more or played better. I don't know. We'll let you all just determine the right way to phrase that as we break it down with Justin Zwick, Bobby Carpenter, and Nicole Cox. We'll have Bill Landis in here shortly as well. So
let's go to the positives first.
Well, it was a pretty positive performance.
I would say the whole thing.
I want to talk about
these positives.
The featured appetizer.
Let's just get right into
it.
Oh, so the rest is
starting off on top, and then it's just going to be a downhill.
We'll slow. I don't want to get these delicious fried mushrooms caught in the mud.
Yes, right. We don't need them in the crossfire here. Let's get that out of the way.
This is what you eat during the Factory of Sadness. You eat the fried mushrooms.
Thank you, Bobby.
That are going to be $3 Tuesday.
$3 Tuesday appetizer.
$3 Tuesday apps. It's 2023, folks. $3 Tuesday apps.
Basket of fried mushrooms.
Fried mushrooms.
So they have to is it just called Threes Day at Roosters now?
You know, it's new.
We're shopping some things, I think, yeah.
We just had with the price increases, we didn't do that many price increases, but just with the cost of food.
Cost of everything.
Yes, exactly. So we had to make it $3 Tuesdays, which, I think
you're still going to have a whole basket of
for $3.
Large mushrooms.
Yeah. Crispy, delicious, moist inside.
Bill Zwick is going to be happy
Zwick's
today.
favorite.
No, Bill's. That's Bill's.
Okay, well, that's one positive out of the way.
Yeah,
the other is
yeah.
that Ohio State played extremely well on Saturday night.
They did.
Came up a couple plays short or a couple calls short or a couple slips short. Was so close, and it'll be another one that Ohio State fans will probably need a long time to get over.
Is this better or worse than 2019 Clemson to you? Because you had LSU waiting.
I think they would have beat LSU, honestly. I've not wavered on that. I've said it for a long time.
Good news, you'll never be proven wrong.
Yeah, I know.
That's right.
I know it's pointless that I keep saying it, but it's not a new take from me. I'll be. You guys can answer that. This show's not about me. I remember the feeling and the breaking down of the Fiesta Bowl against Clemson and the absolutely ludicrous nature of the calls that went against Ohio State, and I felt like that game was stolen from them. And there are some things like the Marvin Harrison targeting on Saturday night that I don't agree with, that I think were egregious mistakes, but it didn't feel like Ohio State had something that was erroneously stolen from them on Saturday night the way that it did then. So I don't think Saturday night is worse than 19 because you couldn't blame Clemson for what happened. You could only blame the officials, and that's the worst way a game can be lost.
Well, and that you had not only the targeting with Sean Wade, you had the fumble too. Yeah. The four-step Jeffrey Okudah deal. That was different. I was kicking this around coming into the game. My goal, and I told all you can ever ask, 5 to 6 minutes left. You have a chance to either get a stop, get a score, and have a chance to win the game. Play that whole time. You play about 50 to 55 minutes of action. You get to stare up there at the scoreboard and saying, okay, we still control our destiny at this point. We don't need crazy onside kick. We don't have to go score in 2 plays. We can still realistically do this with what's capable on our offense and defense, and they had that opportunity. Now, did it stink because they had a string of bad luck where, Cade Stover goes down, has back spasms, he's hurting. G. Scott broke his ankle against Michigan, and so then you're throwing Joe Royer into the game. Joe Royer's a talented player, very highly recruited guy. I don't think he'd really played any meaningful snaps this year due to injury and sickness and a lot of other things. I'm looking up there, oh my gosh, you have Joe Royer and Mitch Rossi in there as your tight end and back in 11 personnel.
Got down there in the red zone. They trotted out Sam Hart, who I don't remember playing a single other snap all year. I'm sure he did. I don't remember it.
I definitely pulled out the program and was looking at numbers and who was who.
Just trying to find out, who are we playing here in the fourth quarter in this huge game?
And because I'm not as familiar with everyone as you guys are, but I'd gotten used to certain people, and I'm like, wait,
it's the last game of the season, so you feel like you're reoccurring characters.
Yeah, you know your player. Yeah,
I was like, okay, but I don't know. What
a tough game. And I watched that fourth quarter yesterday because I'm a glutton for punishment.
So did I.
Going right into the Browns game, I was like, this is going to be a great day.
Yeah,
Happy New Year. I get to watch the end of this, and then we're going to go watch the Browns do what they usually do.
Win a meaningless game.
Well, now, yes. Win a meaningless game. Usually it's just lose and look terrible doing so, but now, yes.
But win when they shouldn't.
Yeah, we are eliminated from the playoffs, so let's go ahead and go on a winning streak. But anyways, yeah, it was just I mean, it was still a kick. It was still a kick to the gut yesterday. What a game! I mean, they played a game that we had been waiting all year for them to play. I think, just in the way the offense came out, the way CJ. I mean, did he look like a different quarterback to you guys?
No, I think he was allowed to be himself.
Well, fair enough. If they're telling him not to do and not to be himself, that's one thing. But it felt to me there's a couple times where he came out of the pocket and that ball was tucked. He knew I'm going.
He switched hands. He switched to the left hand.
Yeah, I know.
We're not throwing that one.
He's running. Yeah, I mean, there was he knew that's what needed to be done. And how many big plays did he make with his feet? Keeping plays alive, like we talk about.
Yeah.
Throwing touchdowns off of it, and then just ended the game. He goes for a 20-yarder to get us into field goal range. I mean,
the second one to Marvin was especially impressive.
100%.
Running. I mean, takes that thing, throws. I mean, that was Aaron Rodgers style.
Yeah.
Like I watched Aaron's son yesterday make throws like that. I'm like, okay. And, we talked about Fields and we romanticized his running, and a lot of it's because we watched him run so much with the Bears this year. Yes. Cardale, all the stuff he did, them scrambling against Bama, the sneak, and then diving around the outside, which I completely
forgot about that one.
But those things all happened in big games, Big Ten championship games, playoff games, national championship. And so I think we lamented that CJ didn't do that, and especially maybe he had some opportunities against Michigan. And it's tough to kind of get out of character when you haven't done it. But I always knew that he was a good thrower of the football. You knew that he was a good quarterback. 100%. The question was, how would he as a leader and a winner, like in winning time?
Yes.
When it's winning time, are you willing to do whatever it takes? And you sit there and you watch, John Elway from his Super Bowl back in 98, 97, helicopter and over the top, just stuff. Are you willing to do whatever? And so my dad told me this. It was an interesting metric. I thought it was like, okay, if CJ runs for like 30 to 50 yards, I think they'll win. And that sounds like a lot, but it's not like he's running leads. I mean, you pull a scramble and you get 12, 14 yards. Mm-hmm. If you take away his sack yardage, which was like 30-some, 26 some odd yards, he rushed for close to 60. And Ohio State rushed. Yes, Ohio State is a total rush for like 150 yards against what people called the best defensive line in college football. And so there was a handful of metrics that I had, and we can dive into this. And my dad's was like, hey, if he needs to run for 4 first downs, well, checking boxes. Mm-hmm. And he had a 27-yarder that set up a game-winning potential kick. I don't think you'd ask the guy for any more. I thought, hey, this Georgia defense is really good. You're not going to be able to drive the ball on them all the time, so you need to score outside of the red zone. Poof, had a couple of those. Needed probably 2 of those. Had 2 of those. I thought you need to have some element of a running game. Everyone's like, it's going to be about the pass. That's great, but you don't want to just see them teeing off. I said 80 yards was kind of my goal. Take out the sack yardage, you rush for $150. Yep. I mean, you were effective running the football against them. Couldn't turn the football over.
Win the turnover margin.
Guess what? Didn't turn it and won the turnover margin. Yeah. And maybe you got a little lucky when Marvin fumbled it out of bounds. Hey, guess what? That's all part of like football. Yeah. To win games like that, you have to be lucky sometimes, and it's better to be lucky than good. And I thought all of those things, kind of materialize. Oh, and explosive gains. You have to have chunks. Dude, they had plenty of chunks. Lots of chunks, and from different guys. You had almost 3 receivers go for 100 yards. I mean, Julian Fleming had 71 yards in there. I mean, all those guys did everything that they were asked to do. So you checked all those boxes on offense. I thought the offensive line, and Mayan Williams, he only had 3 carries, but maybe had the biggest one in a tempo setter. Yeah. When you get down there and you're on the 2-yard line and everyone's thinking, like, we're going to have to throw this in. Like, you don't run it against Georgia. Hole was okay. But he leans in and grinds for 2 yards with his little chunky body, man. He just leans in there, like using all that leg power, all
those extra biscuits that they were talking about on the
5'9", 225 pounds or whatever the heck he weighs, looking like Natron Means out there. Like just leans in and gets it done. And I'm like, man, that's like
tone setter. Yeah.
Well, I'm like, that's an Ohio guy. He ran it to the left. I think Stover was over there, but I'm like, your left tackle is what's his name from Cincinnati?
Paris Johnson.
Paris Johnson. Like everybody, as much talk as it is for a national team, I'm like, you have your running back from Cincinnati running behind a tackle from Cincinnati against the best defensive line in college football, allegedly, and you go get 2 yards on him.
The worst part about that was that Berm predicted C.J. Stroud would run for 70 yards, and then he did it. So that's why he's not going to be on the show.
He's outlawed. I want to hear negative Berm.
He's not. I was
hanging on by a thread, reading "Don't Kill Myself" books.
I was in the car with him for 9 hours yesterday. You guys don't want to hear any more from him. Nicole,
you should have just put the phone on and started recording.
Put explicit.
We've thought about that, but there's some risk and reward there. That's probably too much for us. Nicole, what did you think at midnight on Saturday?
You guys, I've never been so emotional about a game more for the guys. We played incredible. At the end of the day, when you think about what people thought when we were up against Georgia, that like we didn't stand a chance, we played our hearts out and we played incredible. And it's not like Georgia was having an off game. They were playing their best too. That was what was so amazing about the entire game is like, no, we didn't just accidentally do well because they were off, like
we didn't TCU it with Michigan.
I was just going to say, that's exactly what I was going to say. Like it wasn't like Michigan, TCU. It was, we were right there with them. And I think that's such a compliment to our team because Georgia is great. And so are we. But for the guys, I just really wanted them to win. Just for them, for CJ to play his heart out and to not have the win breaks my heart. For Noah Ruggles, you know how I feel about that. But at the same time, I'm like, I hope they also look at themselves and are just so proud of the performance they had. It was absolutely incredible. Every step of the way, I mean, we were winning the majority of the game, and Georgia was like, oh my gosh, they're better than we thought.
Yeah, Greg McElroy was down there on the field level afterwards saying that, oh, this is a mark of a champion for Georgia because they won with their C game. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like,
right.
You could not have beat that Ohio State team with your C game. They did not. They played a hell of a game. They fought back against pretty steep odds in the fourth quarter to come back and get it. Now, were there things that if the penalty is called, you may not get Marvin for the last quarter and a half, but
you probably get a touchdown.
But you're getting a ball.
The score is different. If they don't target him and he doesn't have to go through protocol there and not get his helmet back, does the slant on the final drive hit the ground? Maybe not. I mean, we'll never know, and that's the stuff that I think will be especially painful for Ohio State, the ones that were out of their control. The fact that, again, this notion of them playing their C game and what Nicole's talking about with C.J. Stroud playing at a high level and Georgia having to answer it, the fact that Ohio State was in a position to win that game without Jackson Smith and Jigba, Travion Henderson, healthy Mayan
two receivers,
Cade Stover,
2 tight ends, 2 running backs, top 2 guys you could argue at every position, and got some of them in the country.
It's pretty wild, and there was that sense of pride. Nobody wants at Ohio State. The standard is the standard. Nobody wants silver linings in a college football playoff semifinal, but that team did prove that it belonged. That was effectively the national championship game. I think everybody anticipated that it would be throughout the year. They were number 1 and number 2 for a reason. It got a little sideways because of November 26th, but for anybody that questioned whether Ohio State deserved to be there, that was answered pretty emphatically.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It was a great game. And the standard is the standard. You know how I feel about that. I just don't feel
I said it just for you.
Oh,
those guys, here's the thing, Nicole, like it's the standard to those guys as well. Like they'll look back, like time will give you perspective on the game, but those guys understood that they were expected to win a national championship, partly because they expected it from themselves. Like Noah Ruggles, he's supposed to make that kick. 8 out of 10 times, he probably makes it. Oh. He had a bad kick to have a bad kick. And that's why I said, like, against Michigan, some of those guys that just, you have a bad day to have a bad day. I'm kind of ticked off that, you know what, when you call timeout, snapper, fire the ball and go get a free kick. Mm-hmm. You saw the halftime of the Michigan game, you get a freebie. Everyone loves that second ball in golf. Yeah. I mean, just throw the second one down.
That's the second team All-American.
You never miss the second one.
No, always flush.
That's why I was like, snap the ball. And they just stand up. And that's a little more of an NFL thing. But, like, he expected to make that kick. And you know what, Nicole? Probably 8 times out of 10 he does. I'm not mad. People that are mad at him for missing it, that's not what I'm saying. That's misguided. People that are, like, angry as if I'm, like, ruin their life. I'm like, exactly. You don't think this guy? You don't think this guy's life? He knows how much better it would have been had he made that kick. I mean, he would have been the hero. Like, that's nobody wanted to
He's
make
still
him.
my hero, guys.
I know. I don't want to make him more than him.
My hero, and I mean that. Like, I just look at all of them. It's kind of trying to me. I can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop reading about it. The fact that it sucks that they didn't win because they deserved it. They really, really deserved it. They played phenomenal. And it is one of just those instances, like, there's a bigger meaning behind this. I don't know if I just hope they all look at it that way. And that's why the standard is the standard. They were meant to win. I think there's a message behind it. Hopefully they learn from this and know that it's supposed to help them in some other way of life, because it's not like they made, I don't see really any mistakes from any of those guys. I just saw 100% of their mental, like, their hearts in it, and no Ruggles. It makes me so mad that it's expected for him to make those kicks, because we should feel grateful every time he does make a kick, and my heart breaks for him that he didn't make this one, because he's had such an incredible record. And I give him so much credit for just walking out onto that field with knowing in front of all the 80,000 people at that stadium. It was a record of how many people came. Being able to walk out there knowing that a national championship is on the line and make that kick. I mean, I think I would throw up, honestly. And he did. He walked right out there, and I give huge props to, I think it was the punter. I think it was number 95. I couldn't see that far to see, but he, as Noah was walking off the field, came out and just, like, put his arm around him. And I wanted to do that. I wanted to run out on the field and give him the biggest hug. It was sad watching the guys at the end, but I hope they know, like, they put one hell of a performance on. I mean, it was amazing. So.
Yep. The only question that really exists about that, and I thought Ryan Day called a tremendous game, trying to get a couple more yards to help him, because 50 yards would have been a career long for Noah Ruggles. We've talked about.
He hit a 48-yarder.
He did right beforehand. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It wasn't like he'd only kicked extra points all game.
Yeah, but like
Bobby, but that was.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
It's a different time, but still, he could do it.
Well, that's what people got upset. Are going about the play calling on the last series. They tried to throw the slant.
It's like we ran the ball because we knew we had a timeout.
And it
was almost like forced to run the ball there. I felt.
Ryan Day thought his explanation
you'll get 3 or 4 yards
was that teams in that situation expect that they're maybe going to take a shot. They still don't want to give it up. They don't think that you're going to go try and run it from the 32 to get your 4 or 5 yards, especially with the time and clock situation. So he thought that they could pop it. It didn't work. We can't change that outcome.
But if you get 5 yards, they've been rushing the ball pretty well all day.
My thinking about that when he explained it was, if that's what you believe on first down, then why didn't you try it again on second? If they're not likely to believe that you're going to run it on first, they definitely don't think you're going to try it again on second. He makes a lot of money.
100%. Yeah, it's his call. I mean, he had a great game, but there's a thought in my head. It was like, man, sling the ball down. Let's get another 10 yards instead of saying 3 or 4, because it's still not a chip shot like we talked about.
I think at some point, too, you start looking around at who was on the field.
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
I mean, the slant that they had to throw, like, Xavier Johnson is a hell of a play.
Yeah, I mean, he made a hell of a play earlier in the game.
He was integral on Saturday night. But, again, there's no way that you go into August and you're thinking,
we're going to throw a slant to 10.
Potential game-winning drive in the semifinal against the number 1 defense in the country, and a former walk-on is going to be the target on slant. Like, Xavier Johnson earned that opportunity. I'm not saying he didn't or shouldn't, but that's not Marvin Harrison. And it wasn't
Jackson not ideal. That's not how you
Jackson Smith-Jigba. So, and it wasn't even Cade Stover. So,
You guys, how many national championships have we been to? Has Ohio State been to?
Well, in the playoff era, just one. We went to set 2. We lost. We won in 14.
The fake one, the real 9. One that they won, and the fake one. During COVID. And so just 2 out of the 9 or 10 years it's been going on.
So, I think we made it pretty far and did a pretty damn good job.
Nicole,
we did 100%.
Nicole's bringing out the strong language.
Yeah, well, she's feeling strongly about this team and how they played.
I get, okay, that's the standard is like the national championship. It's like we made it to the playoffs and played the best team in the country, and we're right there with them the entire game. I am so proud of this team. You know,
I might have you start handling my Twitter mentions then, because
don't get me started on.
If you think that what I'm saying
make
is
it a half
upsetting,
hour on Twitter if she was reading those mentions.
I was reading some things and I thought, I can't believe there are people in this world. Now, I love all the other people that got on, you know, Noah Ruggles' Instagram and Twitter and things, and just were like pumping the guys up. I'm like, these are the people I love. These are good people. And
I think that's bad. Back in the day, they wrote letters to us. They actually put pen to paper to say, "We hate you.
Well,
go do something to yourself."
Actually,
I'm so
costs
sorry
money.
Well, yeah, and then you had to put a stamp on it to send it to us. Just so I would open it in my locker.
Bullying, and you're an adult. Like, unreal, you know?
I like to offer reminders every year, Nicole, that proves your point. The national championships are very hard to win. There are 130
and
teams.
to get to.
And even if you're going to cut it down to just the Power 5, you know,
there's still a lot of teams.
It's hard. It's hard to do it.
It's hard to get through 12 games.
It's much more challenging than even to win the Super Bowl, in my estimation, because there's 32 teams and you get extra chances to get to the NFL playoffs. Now, winning that tournament is extremely challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Not taking that away at all, but to get to the college football playoff is one of the hardest things that you can do in sports. It's the smallest field by percentage of the overall field of competitors that exists in sports, and then to have to win 2 games against 2 really good teams back to back is hard to do. That's again, not to excuse anything for people that want to win a national championship.
The thing that stings is you felt like if you won this game,
you definitely got to win the next.
Georgia is a 13.5-point favorite over TCU,
for a reason.
and you feel like Ohio State probably would have come in right about that number.
Yep.
I felt like this was a national
And that's
championship.
my point.
Yeah.
All year long, that's what we heard. Georgia, Ohio State, they're going to be the team. And then we got them in the semis. And
it was amazing. I talked to Laura Rutledge on Media Day down there, and
she's my idol. I love her.
Laura's the best.
I saw her.
You would love her. She's great girl. And she's a Florida girl. Works for SEC Network, ESPN. Florida girl. Her husband, I think, went to Bama. So there's like no love lost with her in Georgia. But she came up and she was so mad that Jackson wasn't playing. She's like, if you guys have Jackson, I think it's a 10-point game.
Yeah. Maybe
14. And I'm like, I don't know. She's like, I'm telling you, like you can get this done. And then even without him, it was 7, 10, 14-point game until Marvin gets hurt, and then that kind of pivots everything because then you're going 3rd, 4th, 5th receiver as opposed to 1, 2, 3.
And the defense is playing a whole different type of defense because you're not having that guy out there.
So there's just a lot of stuff going there. But you felt like that's the problem, Nicole. You felt like you had it. I know there's a bunch of people going into this game that were ultra nervous because they didn't want to watch a blowout. And then I always ask now, like, well, which would you have rather have seen now? Like, I would just rather would have been blown out and been able to bury it and go watch Ryan Seacrest scream "Go Dogs!"
Not right at the last second.
Absolutely not. I think that's what made it such a great game.
Well, yeah, it was great, but
it does.
The way it gets ripped away from you at the very end, as opposed to just saying, "All right, that game's over. We're moving on."
So
it's horrible, but we showed that we are.
I'd much rather have that
just as good as them. They just are a titch better, and that happens. That happens
on that night, and it's on that day.
And they had some things, some things happen here or there. Boom, boom.
Here's the problem: is I was watching the game with neighbors and trying to have a little New Year's Eve party, combo it all up, do a little bit of everything, and this is how close it felt. People going into the game, we go 4 and out, get a first down, 3 and out after that. On it away. Georgia's driving. Like, it's over. We're going to get destroyed.
Here we go.
So he's like, we're going to turn this off. I'm like, just wait. Wait till see if we get a stop, miss a field goal. Boom, go down and score. Like, okay, we good now? It goes from that to all of a sudden when Marvin goes down, you think he'll be back for next week? I'm like, oh, we're on. So we've already tucked this in the bag. We tucked this victory, and we're ready. We're on to the national championship.
We're moving on to TCU.
And that, I think, Nicole, was the problem is it seemed so real then when it didn't initially, and then it's like, we're a better team than they are. Yeah. We're going to win this game, and we should win this game. And that's what I think is really difficult and tough for people to kind of quantify.
I understand that. My heart is with the guys, and I just feel for them, and I hope they know just how they did their best. They can walk off that field and know they put everything, they gave it their all, and I hope I mean, and that's the truth, and it's okay. I mean, we were right there. It just so happened Georgia just happened to just get that one extra play, one extra whatever to win. And that's how they know they did a great job.
And at some point, they will look back and think that. But right now,
okay, that makes me feel better.
For the foreseeable future, I mean, and they're not going to ever feel great about it as players, but they're going to look back and be like, all right, we went into that game. We should have won that stupid game.
I think
it'll become less of a sting as the years go by.
I just think we all need to be so proud of them for making it this far, instead of just expecting every year that we're going to the national championship.
They had some help to make it this far, and in a couple of years, it won't matter. We should make the playoff no matter what.
Yeah,
you guys are gonna have to explain that.
Yeah,
that's a couple of years down the road.
That'll be another show and another argument for later on. Yeah. We're going to let Nicole go about her day. She did a great job organizing the Roosters Bowl trip. Or helping with travel partners. But we were able to hang out there on Friday.
Thanks for coming over.
Those gift bags look pretty sweet. I saw a picture online.
JC, those backpacks were legit.
Yeah,
one almost got stolen.
I bet.
No, our whole team, Eric, Kristen, Tara,
did a great job.
It was a good.
Sure, the winners had a great trip, and
they were amazing.
Very
we had
happy.
the best winners. It was great. So
awesome. Good on you guys.
Saw a great game. Didn't see the outcome they wanted, but that happens. We'll let you go. We'll continue on at Roosters in the Horseshoe Lounge. It's a fun, casual joint.
Roosters has been so fortunate. We just want to be able to give some of that back to the community.
They donate to organizations that are near and dear to their heart, and we're so fortunate to have been with Roosters now for a long time.
They always go above and beyond to help support our foundation to further help veterans.
It's just a wonderful feeling to know that Roosters supports the Buckeye Cruise for Cancer.
All the folks at Roosters are just genuinely kind folks, and they want to make a difference.
Thank you, Roosters Foundation.
Thank you, Roosters.
Thank you, Roosters.
Thank you, Roosters Foundation.
Welcome back into the Horseshoe Lounge. The fried mushrooms are still sitting right here. Justin hasn't had any yet. I don't know why.
Can't wait to get into it.
I had two.
Get some of my teeth.
Oh, okay. That's smart. Bill Landis is here. He's about to have an interesting couple weeks.
Well,
we missed you very much last week in Atlanta, by the way.
Yeah, I missed being down there. It was very odd watching that game on television from my home. But yeah, life's about to get
about to get real
in the next 24 to 48 hours.
But the Nittany Lion's going to get a win today for the Big Ten. Give them a little bit of reprieve.
Yeah, maybe. I wouldn't mind, just hypothetically, if the Bengals and Penn State won.
Oh,
and then if put a little parlay action on that.
Oh,
hey, what?
How about that?
Huh.
Welcome to the great state of Ohio.
Yes,
it's now even greater and more lucrative.
That's right.
What a random hypothetical.
Yes, man. How about that?
What did you think, Bill?
They scored your 40 points.
They did exactly what you said they were going to do.
Yeah.
Ohio State still nearly won.
Uh-huh.
A lot of when you look at the fact that Georgia scored the 42 that you projected they would, how much of that people were up in arms about Jim Knowles and the last two games?
Got to change. Something has to happen.
Yeah.
I felt like the plan was pretty fine, and they forced the key turnover early on, and then I don't think he has any control over what size cleats Lathan Ransom wears. I don't know. I can't really. For me, you three can talk about it. I can't get there of saying that Jim Knowles was the problem. I don't.
There are some calls I think he probably wished he'd have back. You asked Ryan the same thing.
Yeah.
You got to execute better when they're running screens in the red zone. There's some runs that popped out, and the reality is too okay, you're going to miss some stuff up front. That's what the safeties have to get. McIntosh's run. You got to get him down. If it's for 20, you can't rely on the 10-yard line to tackle him, which somehow happened.
Somehow did happen, yes, thankfully.
The 15 got him.
It wouldn't have mattered.
15 got him. He fell on the 10.
Yeah, the old sniper.
But, I like they were aggressive most of the game. Stetson Bennett hadn't been sacked since before Halloween.
Yeah.
It'd been
Crazy
a long
stuff.
time. And, so I was talking about my offensive metrics, the defensive stuff. I wanted 5 3-and-outs. Didn't get that. They had 1 3-and-out, 1 4-and-out. And then the end of the half, though, they did scare them in after you almost threw a pick. All right, we'll just take the knee, 3-and-out that. So, you kind of had 3 there on it. I'm you got to win the turnover margin. You got to force the turnover. I said my goal was 2 sacks. I got 2 sacks. No big plays. Okay, well, that's where things kind of fell apart. And if you could just take out the McIntosh run and then the 75-yarder where Lathan fell down, it's it sucks because mistakes in the back end are touchdowns, and that's ultimately what it has, especially because Georgia has the athletes to take advantage of it.
Well, and the problem is we've seen that all year long. That's why people are sitting there saying, what the heck is he doing? We need somebody over top. We got to have help back there. It's he's calling things, not expecting his guy to fall down and have somebody wide open.
That's what people.
And he's aggressive, and he likes to have that manned up with the safeties. I don't know.
He changed it up. Like, what you doing? Playing zone, things have been working. Like, all right, but if you play the same thing over and over again, they're eventually.
Well, and if you have 8 minutes in the fourth quarter, you're up by 11. You say, hey,
yeah,
what don't we want to happen here?
Yeah,
a quick touchdown. So we back the heck off, and we say, keep them in front of you. Let's make them go down the field and eat some clock up. And if they score, whatever, we can deal with that then. But we can't give up a touchdown on one play. And so I don't think that call was right in that moment. I think we had seen that in other instances throughout the year where we're leaving our guys on islands and they weren't making tackles. They weren't making plays for big scores. At some point, you got to get away from what you like to call and say, this is what we need to do.
But they ran.
I thought they played great. I don't want to, I'm picking on one play, but it's happened throughout the season is what everybody else is looking at.
And maybe that's on Ryan to take that out of Jim's hands. Yeah, and maybe. Listen, man, we're not playing.
This is where we're at in the game.
If we're playing single high man, we're getting our free safety back there, and he's going to be 25 yards deep.
And he's going to be deep.
He can get over top of everything if you want to do that. Yeah. So there's that. But even there was a time they were playing cover 2. And safety, I forget who doesn't pinch down. They got Tommy running through the middle with one of their wideouts. So like, they better not blame this on the backer. Like the safety's got the safety.
He was actually doing a good job in coverage, but what do you want him to do downfield?
You have to get hat bracket over the top.
Yeah, I know.
That play in particular was odd because they were playing like corner over. So Cam Brown and Denzel Burke were on the same side of the formation. So then Cam Brown had to pop back and play safety. So it was it was Ronnie and Cam. And the middle was just wide open, so Tommy has to. It's just similar to Tough Borland covering Devontae Smith. It's like he's not actually doing that, but no one else was there. So everyone looks at it and sees it like, how did you wind up with that?
What kind of matchup was this?
We need faster linebackers. I'm like, you're never going to get linebackers as fast as receivers. Right. So that's just not the case.
Right.
So there's some things you wish you had.
I don't think Tommy was actually like.
He was in good coverage, I thought. Yeah, like, what do you want from him? He was there.
And they got him down. I mean, they did a good job. But Brock Bowers had been slaying teams all season. What do you have, 4 catches for like 55 yards or something? Like he didn't kill you. They did a good job pinching down on him. They stopped him in the red zone for the most part. He scored a ton of touchdowns. So I felt like there was a lot of positives. They got a ton of pressure up front. I thought the D-line, Zach Harrison played a heck of a game. Heck, he tried to run that jet sweep. Dude knocked him right off his feet. He had a sack.
That was a hell of a play.
He was about this close from knocking the ball to Stetson.
Oh, he's so close on it. I know.
And I mean, they forced him into some 2nd and 17, 2nd and 15. You felt like they were ahead of the chains, and then they let him out. And that's what I think was most frustrating is when you get a negative play on 1st or 2nd down, and all of a sudden now they're behind the sticks in a big way. Like, okay, we've got to find a way on 3rd and 11 to get off the field, and that's it. They just weren't able to do that consistently enough.
I think that's probably the biggest, because the reason I picked the score that I picked is the 2 best defenses in the country coming into this weekend were Michigan and Georgia, and they gave up 91 points combined on playoff.
Well, that's the other thing. Everybody gets so upset. I'm like, Georgia also gave up 41.
Yeah. What was the score that you picked, Bill?
I picked 42-41 Georgia.
Oh,
gosh,
interesting.
That's terrible.
Yeah, honestly, like you
really didn't give yourself enough credit.
Well, it played out a lot like I thought it would. I didn't envision like missing the field goal, and I wasn't so sure that Ohio State would have the ball last. But I thought I think it's gonna be back and forth. And if you give Stetson Bennett a chance, he's going to beat you on the last drive of the game. And it wasn't quite that way, but it was close to that. But if you
it was pretty,
yeah. But if you look at how the game transpired, Georgia twice had 2nd and 17 and scored both times. Both times they were in that situation, they got out of it and scored touchdowns. Like that's the kind of stuff that can't happen. I don't think it's realistic to expect the defense to slow down a great offense in college football. It just doesn't happen all that much. Offenses typically win, but you have those moments to really put them back on their heels, to get a takeaway, to get a stop. You have to do it, and they just couldn't do it. And
Georgia's offense was 8th in scoring and 9th in total yard. Like it wasn't like this is some pedestrian offense.
Oh no, yeah, they put up the numbers.
That's the argument would have been if Ohio State wins, would Georgia be asking the question what happened to Kirby Smart's defense? They couldn't get pressure up front. They got some, but yeah. Jalen Carter was a non-factor in the game. There's a lot of things that you could look at. And the reality is we're just in a situation now where it's mostly offensive football. They were able to force them to a handful of field goals. They missed a couple of them. They got some stops in the red zone. Georgia was 2 for 10 on 3rd down.
Yeah.
I mean, they were 1 for 1 on their 4th down conversion, which somehow there was some sort of 3-dimensional matrix thing that popped
nice,
up on the screen.
I've never seen that one before.
But Bob, they did.
There's a straight line where the first down is.
When CJ scrambled that before all the hijinks with the fake punt, they didn't have one apparently, so they could review that one, which I thought was maybe much closer to a conversion.
Did they use that in the review? Because I'd never seen that graphic before either.
Neither have I. It literally popped out of nowhere. Yeah. Like, where did this thing come from? If
it was right angle in the ball.
Like, this is the pylon came. I'm like, are we sure the pylon's actually on the stick too? Like, is that?
Yeah, I know. Like,
who's how are we setting this up? There's a lot of things. Like just defensively, I know that they're lacking. It's also the first year in that scheme. And hopefully, I mean, you've got Steel Chambers. I think he's, coming back. You've got some good young corners. Lathan Ransom's is a good football player. I imagine he will only be getting better. You have to fill in a couple of the safety roles. You lose a guy like Zach Harrison. Yeah, he's a pretty talented player.
Had a big year this year.
He did. Zach had a really good year, and he was a senior and a leader and a really good guy. Using Teron Vincent, but I mean, most of the defense, we'll see what Tommy Eichenberg does. I mean, he'll have the ability to leave if he wants.
Yeah, he did put in for the feedback. It told him they changed the way that they do that. It used to be more specific.
That's thumbs up,
rounds.
thumbs down.
It's, first, second, or thumbs down. Go back to school. I don't know if that's the best way to do it or not, but it's certainly more realistic than before.
Oh, because guys got upset where it's like, well, you said I was going to be a third rounder and I was a sixth. Well, yeah, we're not drafting this. This is just people putting out where they think you're graded to think I'll go crazy. Team may like you and they don't even have a position of need or have a pick at that spot. So who knows?
Yeah, and it told him to come back. We'll see how that transpires. I mean, that's a pretty salty building block if you have Steele and Tommy back in the middle there.
He played well.
Those guys had great games. We spent 9 months since Jim Knowles said it about this being a safety-driven defense, and
you gotta have the safeties.
That's the part if you look at like Ronnie Hickman for the last half of the season. I don't know what happened. The first 6 weeks, all I could see, all I could hear, all I could talk about was Ronnie Hickman is never out of position. He's playing at a high level. The scouts are talking about, oh, man, this guy might now be a second-round pick. Somewhere in the middle, I don't know, that stopped. He was out of position. He was missing tackles. He was doing some things that seemed like he was focused more on the NFL and name, image, and likeness. And whether that translated on the field, I don't know. That was certainly not just my opinion, but that of a lot of other people. And then he says the week of the game that he's not coming back. That didn't really help set the table for what he did in the last 2 games. So I'm not trying to assign specific blame to what happened on Saturday night to one person, but he was certainly in the spotlight and picked on a lot more in that game than I ever would have imagined in the first week of September.
Yeah, he was. I wonder how much of that too is like his skill set. I think Ronnie was really good last year, right? Led the team in tackles. He was playing in the box quite a bit. He was basically a box strong safety. And I think it turned out this year that they just didn't have anybody they could rely on to play the deep middle of the field. And like Josh Proctor, I guess was not part of that conversation. I don't know if he was the guy to do that or not, but every time Ronnie was back there, I think every time Latham was back there, neither one of them just looked like they were able to play that center field position. And that's personnel too, but I also think that speaks to scheme and coaching too. If you have guys that are clearly not comfortable in the spot you're putting them in, then I think at some point you have to stop putting them in those spots. And I think the defense encountered that at times, but I don't know. I still come back to good offenses are going to score a lot of points, and you have to
just limit.
You have to take advantage of the moments when they arise of your defense, and Ohio State's defense didn't do that the 2 or 3 times it happened.
Well, you could look at the Fiesta Bowl and the Peach Bowl and look at the scores that are on the board in those games. Like once you get to the college football playoff at this point, you're not going to see 17-16. Like, those teams are going to score points, even if you have really good defenses. And that's why I spent last week talking about with Jim Knowles. Is he going to sit back and play more conservatively because of what happened against Michigan? No, he's not, because his goal is not necessarily to hold you to 14 points or even 21 points. It's to force a couple turnovers and get 3 or 4 stops that are enough when you have one of a top 5 or a top 2 offense in the country to go out there. That's enough to win games. Like, he is supposed to be pushing the envelope.
Well, and part of it too, I think you put pressure on their quarterback, and maybe he becomes a different guy then too.
Yeah.
They were able to do that, and so they drop. And Stetson did a good job. He missed some throws here and there, errant throws, but I thought he played pretty well, and they did a pretty good job of mixing it up. So it's everyone, and I understand. Like, hey, maybe you just sit back when you're up by 2 scores. The reality is, you're probably got that. If it's 14 instead of 11, I mean that makes a big difference. And so you got to find a way, to get stops, even when it's not easy, and especially like you said, the long runs, the long pass, like that just. It's crushing because they don't have to earn it. They don't have to work for it. Instead of taking 3 or 4 minutes, 5 minutes, I mean, it's fast. And when you have a big lead like that, it's just – that's what's tough, I think, and that's what hurts.
Bill, who impressed you the most on Saturday night?
I mean, CJ. Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
I mean, like he played. I think I said at some point, it might have been on this show when I was on before, like he had to play the game of his life, and he did. He was awesome. He did all the things that you knew he could do well, and then all the things that were questions about him or the creativity that you wanted to see. He did that. He did that too. Injected life into an offense that was really shorthanded and found a way to move the ball against the best defense in the country, despite that. So he was special. It was a legendary performance. It's a shame that it's not going to be remembered alongside of a win, but I would hope that people can still appreciate it for what it was, because that was maybe the first or second maybe best quarterback game I've seen since I've been covering Ohio State.
It's right up there with Justin Fields in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, that'll be, I don't know, the annoying part about forever when the legacy talk comes back, which it never really went away. It was being talked about even before he was done.
Yeah.
Building up to late November. Like, let's say, well, he didn't beat Michigan. We can't argue that. He didn't win the Big Ten championship. We can't argue against that. When the 2021 game up in Ann Arbor or the Oregon game are assigned as losses to C.J. Stroud, I think that's wrong, because he did everything he could to win those, and then that was another example of that on Saturday night. People giving wins and losses to the quarterback when that is an all-time performance, not entirely fair. The rest of it, like, okay, he didn't win a national championship, didn't win the Big Ten, didn't beat Michigan, doesn't have gold pants. That's on there in black and white. But it's a disservice to ignore what he did that made him a two-time finalist for the Heisman Trophy. He is an incredibly gifted quarterback, and that was a masterpiece against a very, very good Georgia team.
That's the thing. It wasn't just against a bad team.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't against the Big Ten. It was against the SEC, the top dog,
best defensive line, and the offensive line played pretty well. I mean, they did a good job negating. I was impressed. The fact that we were able to run the football like we were and gave him time. Yeah, CJ got sacked a couple of times, but he avoided pressure really well. Gosh, on his scrambles, man, you see him stepping up, and then whether it's past, the finding Marvin, doing a great job there. On the offensive side, I'm going to go with Emeka, because he had some drops this year, and they leaned on him a lot. I mean, he had some tough catches at the 1 3rd and 12 or whatever conversion over the middle. I thought Emeka played a really
amazing how much better he is when he can raise his arm above the shoulder.
That helps. That helps. I mean, to be able to catch the football when guys get healthy. He played a really good game, and then defensively, Zach Harrison, I was really happy for him. And I got a chance on Media Day to ask him about, you're from Columbus, from Central Ohio, winning a national championship here, what would that mean to you? And just to hear him kind of talk about it, and the passion in his voice, and echo back to 2014 and knowing what that did to the city and did to the state, and how important that was it's pretty big. And I was praying for that guy for him to get that chance, just because he understood the gravity, I think, of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Emeka was going to have a big game, just because I thought they were going to try and take Marv away. And with that, CJ, of course, had a great game. Marv is Marv, boy. I mean, even with going into that game, Georgia knowing this is their guy, we got to stop him, he still went out and just showed you how good he was, right? And was still making plays, and I think that just crushed us when he, when he went out, not having that there anymore. It's just, he's a special player, and even in a game where that defense knew, hey, we got to shut him down, there's no shutting him down. And it goes into CJ playing a great game and the offensive line playing. I mean, I thought we played our best offensive game of the last 2 years. And it just looked different to me. I mean, it just looked like they had a little fire to him. Even CJ just running, getting down there, doing what he had to do. I think if he played that way the last 2 years, he's a 2-time Heisman Trophy winner. But I didn't see that fire the rest of the year. And maybe I'm just overthinking it, but it looked like a different guy. Like, he knew something's not there. I'm making something happen here, and I don't feel like the rest of the year he was that.
I think if he plays like that against Michigan, he wins the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah. Oh, well, 100%.
I think a lot of this comes from, we talked about this after the game, it starts at the top, and the team played tight, and Ryan Day had been tight. Ryan Day was the most aggressive version of himself, and that, I think, directly translates to the quarterback in this
100%.
case. I'm not trying to take anything away from CJ doing that or assign too much credit to Ryan Day, but Nicole mentioned early on, what's something that this team can take out of it positively. I think it's Ryan Day realizing that he has to be himself. He walked in to Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Saturday night, and he said, There's Berm. Berm. Why are you so scared? Don't be scared, Berm.
Oh, yes.
He turned the corner and he said, "Oh, there's Austin Ward. Look, Austin Ward's in the house. He's not scared." Berm was not scared. He picked Ohio State to win the game, but that his personality actually was back out, and then you saw that in his play calling. Ryan Day spent, I think, 365 days internalizing too much of what Jim Harbaugh said. That maybe he needed to be a tougher guy or act more serious or treat
Why
the game
so
differently.
serious?
And running the football in situations where he didn't call for it.
You walked into the party like you were walking onto a yacht.
That's right. Exactly correct. And I think that did stuff with C.J. Stroud and protecting him and not letting. I think that he learned from that. The second shot at life talk that he was mentioning as soon as they got through on Selection Sunday, I think that was more meaningful for him than for anybody else. And he coached that game like the original recipe Ryan Day that got him the job.
The Colonel's original recipe.
Yeah. And that's the one they need. Why is there faith that the program is not collapsing and that they can get back? If that's the version of Ryan Day that Ohio State gets permanently, they're gonna win a championship again pretty soon, and he'll get his own.
Yeah, I mean that's the version of Ryan Day that Gene Smith saw when he made that hire at the time that he did. And I think you're right. I think for whatever reason, there's probably multiple reasons. I think maybe over the last couple of years he kind of lost that. And I do think over time, head coaches do have to morph into more of a CEO type. But that doesn't mean you have to change your personality or change what makes you successful. And it did seem like for Ryan Day felt liberated by this second chance against Georgia. And I was talking with Berm about this kind of the day after the game. If he can bottle that, and that's who he is now moving forward, then I think Ohio State is probably better off. But he has to do it.
But come next year Michigan game, when we need to win that game up there, is he going to revert back to, or that's why kind of lose that going into?
I think he has to take that. Look at how much more effective Ohio State is when
how much
it
fun
plays to its
strength.
You'd never even seen him after CJ's ridiculous scramble and the throw to Marvin and the wild celebration on the sideline. I don't think he would have allowed himself to do that and be seen as having fun or a personality. What happened up there, and the first time he lost that game, I think he kept getting beat by it, and they won 11 games in a row. But then he was not himself. The week before the Michigan game, and the play calling was not great in it. And we had all these conversations about if he could continue to do it, if he needed to give it up.
It's weird to have that conversation.
And I think that he probably will give it up next season. That's a conversation for another day.
There's going to be a lot of stuff happening.
But that was why he was allowed to do it in the first place, or why he kept doing it, or why he thought that he was the best person to do it, because he's still pretty darn good at it. When he's himself.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to manage everything, and I think you're trying to call fake punts and trying to look at down and distance situation. I mean, that's really tough. I mean, and that's what you talk about being aggressive. And he talked about that a lot. He said, it doesn't mean going out there and throwing it every
being
play.
Reckless. It just means
But they had him greased on for another fake punt for the second game in a row for a completely different reason.
They also had 12 guys on the field.
12 guys on the field.
Do you think that they would have? I did see.
And the ball was in Mitch's hand before the ref. You can see a still picture.
One or the other. They would have thrown the flag, or the timeout helped them.
Do you think they would have thrown the flag? Do you think the officials got it?
they play around and they didn't. So
they didn't throw it.
You can't review. That's not reviewable.
It's not reviewable. Yeah,
it's the penalties are not reviewable. In theory, that one of them should have fired a flag as they snapped the ball. I don't think they caught it because I counted it. I had to count it twice before I fully realized.
I didn't notice it live.
Yeah, they were talking about that in the locker room. Donovan Jackson's not normally out there. Maybe he wasn't. Somebody wasn't supposed to be. But that
there was some. Donovan. We'll get it. He. I think he was supposed to be out there. Someone else should not have run the field.
Back out, but you just look at some of those that were split second. They had a designed quarterback sweep for C.J. Stroud early on that would have been a first down. They dialed that up, and Mitch Rossi just slightly moving forward.
That's the play call.
A lot of those things that were just so close. Even when Marvin, before he gets knocked out, he's almost got possession in the back of the end zone. All these things that were so close. I will never ever understand how you can throw the flag and then overturn that. If they hadn't thrown the flag and they looked at it, they would say, well, that was targeting. I fully believe that. There's just
all the ones that we see all the time, and you never.
He's a defenseless player in the back of the end zone, and I know that like there are things about targeting that Bob as a defensive
I don't like
hates.
it. I don't think it is, but they call it all the time.
They call it all the time. Yeah,
you have to be consistent with your. That my biggest problem with it is your consistency in the administration and enforcement, which there's zero consistency of that because you see that happen. Like I would be fine if that wasn't, but you call it all the time, so it.
Well, and we had a guy kicked out of a game, Sean Wade, for tackling somebody who was taller than him who bent down. You know, it's like
both games too.
Yeah, it's like how do we lose guys like that?
Bowl should have been a targeting penalty as well.
But you know,
based upon what you would see,
based off of
like I don't think that's a good call, but based upon what they have called
the rest of the season,
that would be congruent with the other calls.
Yeah,
I didn't want to talk about the officiating, but we got there anyway. In the end, that one was definitely wrong. I just don't. You'll never convince me otherwise.
Nope.
And the part that your neighbors were talking about, Marvin Harrison was expected to be cleared for next week.
He would have. I mean, told him, man, his dad played. I mean, Marvin would have been ready to go.
Hey, and the reason that I thought like Ohio State's medical staff did the thing.
I love them. There's zero chance they would have kept me out of the game.
I
mean, I'm just being real.
Oh, Bobby would have been fighting somebody on the side.
You take my helmet. You better call security and tase me because I'm gonna beat that. I'm gonna beat the hell out of you.
That would not have been a good.
You know
thing.
who else is entering the concussion protocol? The training staff. And the doctor who just told me no.
Dr. Katie.
You try to take my helmet, Mick? I'm gonna beat you with it, just like Myles Garrett. So you better let me back on the field. And I'm fine with that. I'll sign the waiver. I understand what it is.
Let me sign the waiver. I'm going back out.
I get it. Like, we're here now at this point. Like, this isn't some arbitrary thing. Like, I'm trying to win. This isn't a week 2 game against, San Diego State. This is real.
Yeah, and he was out.
Marvin's a better human than me, though.
Yeah. And he didn't point the finger at them, and he actually sat in his locker and took questions for a good amount of time on Saturday night. It seemed he forced a couple smiles, and he was lucid, and that's why, I left on Saturday night thinking, how did he not clear the protocol?
Because there is no protocol. They make all this stuff up now. Everybody just wants it's a CYA.
They just know if you got hit hard, you got to come out, and you're probably not going to go back in because
They threw a flag for targeting, so you have to come out now and have to check you. But then they take the targeting away, so shouldn't you only be in the protocol then if you're showing symptoms? What are those symptoms? I don't know. Am I tired? Like lightheaded? Sure, because I've been running around.
I just ran 40 yards downfield and got crushed at the end of it.
Did he say whether or not he was actually out? Because it looked like he got knocked out.
He
didn't
say it, but Berm was taking a photo 4 feet away, and he and Julian Fleming, somebody, maybe Joe Royer was there. They
motioned.
They knew that there was, some medical attention was required.
He felt that one. It was a big hit. He felt it, and it may have got him.
We're going to talk about this game probably for 8 more months. So
8 more years.
We can put a pin in that for now and wrap it up in here in the Horseshoe Lounge. Appreciate Roosters for having us as always. Great to be in a fun casual joint. Don't forget to come in. Appetizer Tuesday is now $3. Fried mushrooms are available. Thanks to Nicole Cox, Jay-Z, Bob, Bill. I am Austin. We'll be back again next week. Happy New Year to you all.